So, what are the pillars to successful aging? Hi, Roz, how are you? So, welcome to Super Aging, which is a show about how we can make changes now that will help us to increase our chances of experiencing a long and healthy life. I'm Marianne from One Life to Flourish. I'm a wellness mindset coach and an intuitive energetic healer. And I am passionate about helping people at midlife live their best life right now so that they can then age well. Now, tonight's topic is overall, I suppose, a summary of lots of the big ideas that I've talked about and presented in the past. There's a few new ones in there, but mostly it's kind of a recap. So why am I doing that? Well, last week I was having a conversation with a nutritionist friend of mine, and we were talking about a particular process that happens at the cellular level in the body that, when it happens, has health benefits now, but also helps to improve longevity. So my question to her was, how do you make sure that this process is actually working? Now, the answer was basically doing all of the important things to keep healthy, which I'm going to talk about. And I kind of went, basically anything that I've talked about to do with longevity comes back to some of these key things. So not all of them necessarily, but overall, yes, it does. Hi, Myra, how are you? So basically, it made me think a little bit, which I do like to think. So it made me wonder, do we just end up kind of switching off because we've heard all of this stuff before? Or is it sometimes the fact that we don't do stuff because old age seems so far away, so there's plenty of time to make changes later? So tonight, I'm hoping, is a little bit of a wake-up call, because later often never gets here, just like tomorrow often never gets here. So if you start to put in some of these key things, then you reap some benefits now, and you also reap them into the future. So it's a win-win. So we could, put stuff off, continue with our usual habits, put up the excuses. I know I was certainly guilty of doing that for quite a long time, until I had a bit of a wake-up call, until I realized that the only time to make changes is now. All right, so let's look at what I'm calling my pillars of aging well. So I've kind of put these into 3 categories, maybe the categories of the pillars. Anyway, so basically we're looking at physical, mental, and emotional, and spiritual well-being. We'll make sure I separate them. So, and some of the things that I talk about kind of go in more than one of those areas. So if we look at physical well-being, these are probably the things that you hear a lot of, because they're repeated and repeated, even though we kind of ignore them a lot. So the first one is healthy eating. In particular, eating lots of healthy whole foods. So lots of vegetables, fruit, whole grains, not processed grains, beans, all those sorts of things. And of course, cutting out our highly processed foods, especially the ones that have heaps and heaps of sugar and stuff in them, and preservatives and whatever, that probably don't even work like food at all. Next one is all about moving. So we shouldn't be sitting for too long at a time. Definitely should be moving at least every hour, if not more often. And of course, we should also be doing some more vigorous exercise and some weight-bearing exercise and some stretching. So all of those good habits around how we move. Then we have sleep and relaxation. So yes, exactly. Stop eating microwave, although it can depend a little bit on what it is. But there is something that I haven't really talked about here, which has to do with the environment that we're creating as well. So this is more to do with what we're doing. But yeah, be careful what you're eating in terms of microwave dinners and stuff. All right, so sleep and relaxation. we absolutely need to have a regular sleep routine that gives us the right amount of sleep each night. And we also need to make sure that we just kind of slow down, we chill out, we relax, we stop rushing around. That is not good for us. That creates the stress that is often the starting point for some of these longevity processes to get switched off. All right, so there's other things I could include there, but I think they're kind of like the big ones in terms of our physical well-being. So mental and emotional well-being, and this is just my opinion, although there's, obviously the evidence around it, but basically I would put it as these kinds of groups. So first of all, you've got like your mindfulness, your meditation, and your gratitude kinds of practices. So that has a certain impact on your mental health. That is, has lots of good benefits. If you're not sure, go back. I've talked about that quite a few times because that's one thing that I absolutely believe in. That's something that we should all try and do. All right, the next one is really, because I found the amazing benefits of this. This is why I became like a coach and a healer, essentially. So this is about releasing our suppressed emotions, all the stuff that we kind of shove down, but also changing the beliefs that are actually limiting us. So this is kind of like the conditioning we get from people around us, from society, from ourselves, from our background, whatever. So we so often just limit ourselves instead of opening ourselves up. So actually letting go of some of this stuff, believe it or not, improves our longevity. All right, so the next part that kind of sits with that is actually once you've released some of that stuff that's kind of like baggage, then open yourselves up to new ideas, trying out new things, doing new activities, or just going back to maybe some that you used to do. So just, kind of keep your mind and your body ticking over and involved in stuff. And that connects to the next one, which is about having really strong social networks. So this could be strong relationships within families, outside of families, how you interact in groups, all that sort of thing. And of course, the final one is just how we give back to society. So volunteering, different kinds of altruism, that has been shown to be really important in just helping us to age well. So all of those mental and emotional wellness things are really critically important, more than we actually think of. So, hi, is it Raywin? Is that how we say your name? Welcome. All right, now the final category is the spiritual well-being. Now, quite often we think about like the spiritual well-being as, like religion or something like that, but it's not really that at all. So this is about, who are you deep down inside and what kinds of things are guiding you. So it's like having a really clear set of values, of principles that are like your moral compass that are guiding your decisions. So it's that kind of certainty around what you believe and what decisions you're going to make. And connected to that is actually making sure that you have a clear purpose in your life. So as you go through life, you will actually sometimes change direction on what your purpose is, and that's perfectly fine. But at every point in your life, you should have a purpose that you're actually really passionately involved in. So it can be something that is, going to impact the world, or it could be something that's just going to really impact you. But you need to have that has huge benefits to actually living a long life. The next one, probably the next one, kind of the next two go together. So we've kind of got being willing to receive love. So this is love from yourself. So self-love is so important. Being willing to receive love from others. I'm not talking, just in a relationship sense, but just kind of that feeling of being loved and accepted. And then if you choose to go in this way, actually receiving love from a higher source. Now, to tie in with that, we also need to be able to give love freely. So not hold it back, which is what we often do. You know, we kind of go through life and we've been knocked down and knocked back and whatever. So we just kind of create our barriers. We actually need to let them go and just really be, you know, that sort of free and giving kind of people. And then the final part of our spiritual wellness is just maintaining and getting that sense of hope, that sense of peace and gratitude, which kind of goes back to what I was talking about in the emotional health as well. So gratitude is such a really powerful emotion. So all of these things together have, I suppose, like a multiplying effect on us in terms of our overall health in this point in time, but also as we go forward in our life. So, you know, I believe that we should be living the best life that we can now, but we should also be making sure that our potential for living a great life in the future is also enhanced. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So the other thing I want you to think about is the fact that anything that has an impact on us, so whether it's at a physical level, whether it's at an emotional and mental level, or whether it's at that spiritual, purposeful level, any of those things has an impact on how our body is actually working. So we really want to, you know, try and live the best life possible. Sometimes it can actually feel like it's just sort of too hard to make changes. You know, we've got so much stuff going on, but sometimes we just have to step up and step out, essentially. So, you know, the reason why we don't want to make changes is often because we're sitting in our nice little comfort zone. It's feeling comfortable. And if we try and step out of it, that feels uncomfortable. That's challenging. But actually having some challenges is also something that will help us to live better now and in the future. So the thing is, if we stay in our comfort zone, we basically limit ourselves so much that we're not becoming the people that we can be. All right, so that probably brings me a little bit back around to what I'm all about. So I really focus on helping people when they're feeling stuck to actually make those changes that they'd like to make. So coming up in October, I have got my Ultimate Midlife Healing Journey program opening up for some more limited places. So if you really think that it's time to make some big changes, if you've struggled with some of these things that I've talked about, then just, you know, reach out, put a yes, whatever, let me know that you're interested, and we can have a bit of a chat. So in September, I'm actually offering a special early bird price before we get started in October. It is an amazing program. All right. Excellent, Myra. So I will get in contact with you. Thank you. All right. So basically, think about how you can make some changes, what kind of changes you can make. Sometimes it can be just the smallest thing that can act like that little pebble rolling and getting more and more momentum happening. So just choose one thing if you're feeling a little bit stuck and take that step and kind of move forward. So thank you for joining me tonight. I hope you've got something out of it that's really useful to you. And good luck as you go forward in the week. See if you can make some of those little changes. And I'd invite you to join me next week when I'm going to be talking about some more things about how we can be a super ager, how we can actually get into the rest of our life in the most positive way possible. So join me then. I'm not entirely decided what I'm going to talk about next week. Sometimes I have a plan that I break, which is what I did today. Sometimes I go back to the plan, so we'll see. But keep an eye out. You are definitely welcome to join me. So, Myra, I'm glad you got a lot out of what I was talking about. That's great. It makes me feel good to know that you've got some good things out of it. All right. Have a great night. Have a great week. And good luck with making changes. Bye.